Sometimes the hardest part isn't letting them go. It's letting go of the version of yourself that loved them. My friends, let's start with a truth most people are too scared to say out loud. You didn't stay stuck because of the breakup. You stayed stuck because of the story you kept telling yourself about the breakup. And if that hits a little too close to home, good. That means we're finally talking about the thing you've avoided for far too long. Hey folks, imagine this. You're carrying a backpack, nothing crazy, just a simple bag slung over your shoulder. But every day, without noticing, someone slipped a brick inside it. A memory here, a regret there, a what if, a maybe later, a they'll change, a it wasn't that bad, I should have tried harder. And one morning you try to stand up, but the weight doesn't move with you. You realize the bag isn't just heavy, it's pulling you backward. That's what heartbreak feels like. Not the dramatic collapse movies show us, but the slow, quiet weight of thoughts we never bothered to challenge. Have you ever noticed how your mind loves to replay the highlight reel? The best moments, the happiest days, the version of them who existed only 5% of the time. Meanwhile, the other 95%, the confusion, the disrespect, the silence, the emotional guessing games, your mind hides those in storage, like old clothes you pretend you might wear again. Let me break a lie for you right now. You didn't miss them. You missed the person you imagined they could become. And that version, they never showed up. Not once. My friends, most of us don't stay stuck because of love. We stay stuck because of hope. We keep watering a dead plant because we're scared to admit the truth. No amount of sunlight can revive something that stopped growing long before you let it go. A breakup isn't just the end of a relationship. It's the end of an identity you built around someone. And when that identity collapses, it feels like you collapsed. But the truth? You're still here. You didn't break. Your expectations did. Let's add a little humor here too, because sometimes if we don't laugh at ourselves, we'll just sit in the dark overthinking. You know that moment when you open your gallery and scroll all the way back to those happy pictures, and suddenly you're like, wow, I used to smile like that. Was that even me? Yes, my friend, that was you. The version of you who didn't carry 10 pounds of emotional receipts. But don't worry, that person isn't gone. They're just waiting for you to stop checking your phone every 5 minutes, wondering if the ghost who left you is suddenly going to become emotionally intelligent. Here's something I want you to remember. Healing doesn't begin when the pain stops. Healing begins when the lies stop. The lie that you weren't enough. The lie that your love wasn't valuable. The lie that losing them was your fault. The lie that you'll never feel something real again. These lies didn't just hurt your heart. They confused your mind. You're not struggling to move on because you're weak. You're struggling to move on because you're human, because your heart invested deeply, because your soul believed in a future that didn't happen, and because you still think letting go is failure, when in reality, letting go is freedom. My friends, the moment you stop fighting the past, a new future finally has room to walk in. You're not meant to stay stuck in a memory. You're meant to rise from it. So let this be your reminder, your wake-up call, your moment of clarity. You are stronger than the silence left behind. You are bigger than the heartbreak that tried to shrink you, and the next chapter of your life doesn't need permission from the last one. Your affirmation for today: I choose myself. Write it in the comments so your healing has a place to land. And stay with me, because what comes next will change everything. Number 1. The lie you keep telling yourself. Most of the pain you feel after a breakup doesn't come from what happened. It comes from what you keep telling yourself about what happened. My friends, that line might sting a little, but sometimes the truth has to hit hard before it can heal. Because if you're honest with yourself, you'll see it. You're not just living with what they did. You're living with the story you built around it. You tell yourself, they were my only chance. You tell yourself, if I had done more, they would have stayed. You tell yourself, they're fine. I'm the one who lost. And every time you repeat that story, it doesn't just hurt your heart, it handcuffs your future. Hey folks, imagine this. You're standing in front of a broken mirror. The glass is cracked, the reflections are twisted, but you're still trying to fix your hair using that same mirror. No matter what you do, everything looks wrong. Not because you're broken, but because what you're using to see yourself is broken. That's what happens after a breakup, when you keep looking at yourself through the version of you that loved them. You're judging your worth through someone who couldn't handle your depth, your loyalty, your honesty. Of course you're going to feel not enough if you're using a shattered standard. You might sit there thinking, but they moved on so fast. Doesn't that mean I was easy to replace? That's one of the scariest questions your mind loves to torture you with. Another one, if they're so happy now, was I the problem the whole time? Those questions aren't neutral. They come loaded with fear. Fear that you wasted your time. Fear that you weren't good enough. Fear that you'll never feel that connected again. But let me break a lie for you right now. You did not lose because they left. You lose only when you decide their departure means you were unworthy. Sometimes people leave not because you were lacking, but because your presence quietly exposed everything they refused to grow into. That's not your failure. That's their unfinished work. Think about it like this, my friend. Imagine you're holding a book. The cover looks incredible. The first few chapters pull you in. You highlight lines. You reread pages. You tell yourself, this is my favorite story ever. But as you keep reading, the plot stops making sense. The character becomes inconsistent. Promises appear and then disappear. The ending? Rushed, confusing, unfinished. Now imagine closing that book and saying, because this story ended badly, I must be a bad reader. That's exactly what you're doing to yourself after the breakup. You're blaming your ability to love because the other person didn't know how to handle the story with you. Here's a quote I want you to keep close. You are not the reason they were unready. You are just the place where their unhealed parts showed up. Why is it so difficult to let go of the story? Because the story gives you a sense of control. If you can say, it ended because I wasn't attractive enough, smart enough, patient enough, then your brain whispers, okay, next time I'll just fix all that and no one will leave. Your mind would rather blame you than accept a harder truth. Some people will walk away no matter how perfectly you love them. It's terrifying to admit that. It means love doesn't guarantee loyalty. It means effort doesn't guarantee respect. It means your best still won't be enough for someone committed to staying the same. So what does your brain do? It creates a lie that says they were the one and I ruined it. Because somehow that lie feels safer than they were never capable of giving me what I actually needed. One lie keeps you stuck but feeling hopeful. The truth sets you free but forces you to grieve what never really existed. You're afraid to let go of the story because you're afraid that without it, there's nothing left. No them, no us, no fantasy ending, just you and the reality you tried so hard to avoid. But listen, my friend, reality is not your enemy. Denial is. Moving on doesn't become impossible because your heart is broken. It becomes impossible because you keep rewriting the past in a way that makes them look bigger and you look smaller. You remember how they held you, but you forget how they ignored you. You remember the moments they chose you, but you erase the days they made you feel like an option. You replay their good days and mute their worst ones. It's like watching a movie where you fast forward through every red flag and only replay the kissing scenes. Of course you'll feel like you lost something divine. You edited out the parts that would remind you why it had to end. Folks, you need to hear this. You did not lose the best thing that ever happened to you. You lost the most intense lesson that ever happened to you. And that lesson was never, "You're unlovable." The lesson was, stop confusing emotional chaos with deep connection. Why do you think like this? Because somewhere along the way, you were trained to believe that love should hurt a little. That if it's not complicated, it's not real. That if you're not constantly trying to prove yourself, they'll get bored and leave. So when someone makes you jump through hoops, your brain says, "Ah, yes, this must be love." But Stoic psychology asks a harder question. If peace feels unfamiliar, is that because it's wrong? Or because you've lived in emotional chaos for so long, you don't know who you are without it? It's okay to admit you're afraid. Afraid of being alone. Afraid that no one else will see you the way they did. Afraid that maybe this was your last big love. But here's the truth. Your life did not peak with someone who didn't know how to keep you. Your heart did not reach its maximum level with someone who wasn't willing to grow. Your story does not end with a person who couldn't even stay for the final chapter. You are not stuck because of them. You are stuck because you keep repeating, "I'll never find something like that again," when what you should be saying is, "I will never again accept something like that." That shift changes everything. So here's your motivation for today. You are allowed to outgrow the story. You are allowed to say, "Yes, I loved them. Yes, I hurt. But no, I will not keep telling myself I lost everything. I lost someone who did not fully show up for me. That is not everything. That is a chapter." Your affirmation for this part of the journey: I rewrite my story. Write it in the comments to show them. Show yourself and show the world around you that you're no longer loyal to the lies. And stay with me, because once we start exposing the next layer of why you still feel attached, you'll never look at this breakup the same way again. Here is section 2, rewritten fully in paragraph form, long, flowing, connected paragraphs instead of short lines. Same tone, same metaphors, same intensity, same Stoic psychology, about 800 words. Number 2, the silent attachment you don't want to admit. Just because you stopped speaking to them doesn't mean you stopped speaking to them in your mind. That truth hits harder than we like to admit, my friends, because moving on isn't just about deleting their number or unfollowing their page. It's about untangling the thoughts that still show up without permission. It's about facing the emotional reflex that still reacts in the dark when the distraction fades. You can claim you're over them. You can act unfazed. You can tell everyone you're done. But if your mind still drifts toward them when you're tired, lonely, or quiet, then you're dealing with a silent attachment far deeper than you've acknowledged. This kind of attachment is sneaky. It doesn't show up loudly like heartbreak. It doesn't cry or scream or break things. It hides in the corners of your routines. It shows up when a song reminds you of a moment you didn't want to forget. It shows up when you pass a place you once visited together. It shows up when you pick up your phone out of habit, expecting a message that will never come. Silent attachment is like a shadow, always behind you, always present, even when you pretend you don't notice it. Imagine this, folks. You're carrying a phone with a dead battery. The screen is black, the device has no life, but every few minutes you tap it anyway. You check for notifications that can't exist. You keep it close just in case something changes. That's what silent attachment feels like. The connection is technically dead, but the reflex to check if they're still there remains alive. It's not love. It's habit. It's not longing. It's emotional muscle memory. And here's the uncomfortable part. You don't miss the person, you miss the pattern. You miss having someone to message, someone to imagine a future with, someone to explain your day to, someone to attach your hope to. You're not attached to them, you're attached to what they represented during a chapter of your life where you wanted certainty, connection, and belonging. That's why this is so confusing. You're not grieving a person. You're grieving a feeling, a dream, a version of yourself that believed everything made sense when they were around. But let's break a lie right now. If the connection were truly deep, you wouldn't be healing alone. You wouldn't be the only one replaying moments. You wouldn't be the only one feeling the weight of silence. Silent attachment lingers because your mind clings to the fantasy more tightly than your heart accepts the facts. You built a version of them in your head that felt safe, consistent, emotionally available. That version never existed outside your imagination. They weren't patient, your hope was. They weren't stable, your heart was. They weren't consistent, your expectations filled the gaps. You want to know why you still feel attached? Because imagination doesn't disappoint you the way reality did. Memory doesn't argue. Fantasy can't let you down, and when someone leaves, your mind often holds onto the best parts because the truth is too painful. The connection you believed in wasn't mutual. If they walked back into your life right now, exactly as they were, the same emotional imbalance would appear. The same doubts would creep in. The same confusion would pull at your peace. The same feeling of chasing would return. That sting you feel isn't because something magical ended. It's because something unhealthy finally collapsed. Silent attachment hides behind nostalgia. You remember their smile, but forget how often it faded. You remember the warmth, but forget the cold. You remember the moments they chose you, but forget the weekends you wondered if you even mattered. You're holding on to an edited version of the story where the painful chapters are blurred out. And that's why letting go feels so impossible. You're not letting go of a person. You're letting go of the illusion they allowed you to build. Here's a quote for you. You are not missing them. You are missing the version of yourself who believed everything would work out. That version of you, the hopeful, patient, deeply giving version, is the one you're grieving. Losing someone hurts, but losing a version of yourself hurts differently. And that pain confuses the heart because you don't know what exactly you're healing from, the breakup or the identity. Humans cling to patterns that feel familiar, not patterns that feel healthy. Your heart wasn't addicted to them, it was addicted to the emotional rhythm. Even chaos can feel like home if you lived in it long enough. Silent attachment survives because it feels safer than emptiness. But eventually, truth breaks through the fog. You start seeing the things your hope tried to hide. You begin realizing that the connection wasn't sacred, just comfortable. You recognize that your silence was carrying a weight they never once helped you lift. And then something subtle shifts inside you. Not dramatically, not loudly, but gently. You catch yourself thinking, I can't keep holding the emotional weight of someone who isn't here anymore. That sentence is the beginning of emotional freedom. It's the moment your heart pulls back from the fantasy. It's the moment your soul begins reclaiming the space they once occupied. And little by little, the silent attachment loosens. Your affirmation for this chapter is, I release what stays silent. Write it in the comments to show them, show yourself, and show the world around you that you're no longer holding on to ghosts. And stay with me, because what's coming next reveals why your ego is hurting more than your heart. And that truth changes everything. Number 3. The ego's role in your pain. Sometimes it's not your heart that's shattered after a breakup. It's your ego that can't accept the story it's being forced to live with. My friends, this one is uncomfortable, but we need to go there. Because a lot of what you're calling heartbreak is actually ego pain wearing a mask. Your heart is grieving the loss, yes, but your ego is grieving the insult, the rejection, the fact that someone you cared for, someone you showed up for, someone you gave parts of your soul to, chose not to stay. And whether you admit it or not, a part of you whispers, "How dare they not see my worth?" Let's be honest. It's not just, "I miss them." It's also, "Why wasn't I enough for them to fight for me?" That question doesn't just hurt your chest, it stabs your pride. Because deep inside, you didn't just want love. You wanted to be chosen. You wanted to win. You wanted to be the one they finally settled with, the one they never walked away from. When that doesn't happen, your mind doesn't just cry, it argues. It negotiates. It imagines conversations where they come back and finally admit, "You were right. I was wrong. I lost the best thing that ever happened to me." That's your ego talking. That's the movie it keeps trying to play in your head. Hey folks, imagine your ego like a character who hates losing at anything. It could be a game, a debate, or in this case, a relationship. Your ego is like that one player who flips the board when they're not winning. If things don't end on their terms, they refuse to accept the result. That's what happens emotionally. The relationship ended, but your ego keeps saying, "No, not like this. Not with me looking like the one who lost. Not with them walking away as if I never mattered." So instead of letting the chapter close, your ego reopens it 1,000 times in your mind. You might catch yourself thinking things like, "How can they look so happy without me?" Or, "Why didn't they fight for me the way I would have fought for them?" Or, "How could they replace me that quickly?" Those aren't just emotional questions, they're ego wounds. They poke at your sense of importance. They make you feel like your value has dropped because someone else didn't recognize it. But here's a hard truth. Their decision does not define your worth. It only reveals their capacity. The ego doesn't like that. The ego wants a clear villain and a clear win. It wants the narrative where they crumble, come crawling back, confess everything, and your value is finally confirmed. The problem is, life doesn't always serve that kind of ending. Sometimes they never apologize. Sometimes they never understand what they lost. Sometimes they move on in their own confused, messy, emotionally blocked way, and you never get that satisfying moment where the scales feel balanced. So what does your ego do? It keeps you stuck in the same loop, proving, imagining, replaying. It's why you might suddenly feel an urge to post certain pictures, say certain things, glow up, not for yourself, but to show them what they're missing. You're not just healing, you're trying to win. You want the universe to send you evidence that you were the prize. And if you don't get that evidence, the ego gets angry. It says, "How is this fair? I gave so much, and I look like the one who lost." Let me break a lie for you, my friend. You did not lose just because they left first. You do not win just because they come back. Real winning in Stoic psychology doesn't come from having the upper hand over someone else. It comes from having mastery over yourself. Your ego wants control over their reaction. Your spirit wants peace, regardless of their reaction. Think of it like standing in front of a mirror that only shows half your reflection. The ego focuses only on how it feels less than now. It zooms in on the rejection, the abandonment, the embarrassment. It says, "They didn't choose me, so I must not be that special." Meanwhile, the other half of the mirror, the part that holds your strength, your growth, your values, your lessons, gets ignored. But what if the story isn't, "They didn't choose me," but life removed someone who couldn't walk with the person I'm becoming? That's not ego. That's clarity. Why is it so hard to think like that? Because the ego hates uncertainty. It wants the satisfaction of knowing it was right. It wants proof. It wants scenes, texts, closure, explanations, apologies. It wants them to admit they messed up. That's why you feel that itch to keep checking if they're watching your story, if they reacted to your posts, if they've sent some cryptic message. Your ego is scanning for evidence. Do I still matter to them? But here's the question that flips everything. Why is your worth still waiting for their confirmation? In Stoic psychology, there's a powerful idea. You don't control what others do, but you completely control how much space their choices take inside you. Your ego tells you, if they still care, then I'm valuable. Your higher self tells you, I'm valuable whether they see it or not. The first leads to obsession, the second leads to peace. Yes, it's difficult to accept that someone you cared for can walk away and keep going. It's difficult to see them laughing while you're still healing. It's difficult to accept that there may never be that perfect moment where they say everything you long to hear. But that difficulty is not a sign you're weak. It's a sign you're human. Your work now is not to force them to understand or regret. Your work is to free your mind from needing them to. The moment you stop needing their regret is the moment your ego loosens its grip. You stop rehearsing arguments in your head. You stop wishing for their apology. You stop crafting imaginary speeches. You start focusing on yourself, not in a bitter way, but in a grounded, peaceful way. It's no longer, I'll show them. It becomes, I'll show myself. Your affirmation for this part of your journey is, my worth is not up for debate. Write it in the comments to show them, show yourself, and show the world around you that your value is no longer tied to anyone's choice. And stay with me, because the next piece we uncover will explain why your mind keeps clinging to what could have been, even when you know it's time to let go. Number 4, the addiction to what could have been. Sometimes you're not stuck on who they were, you're stuck on the movie, and your mind keeps replaying about who you thought you'd become together. My friends, this is one of the most painful truths to face after a breakup, because many times you're not crying over the relationship you actually had. You're crying over the future you built in your head. The trips you never took, the home you never moved into, the conversations you never got to have, the version of them you believed they would grow into, the version of you who would finally be safe, loved, chosen. That story, the what could have been, isn't just a thought. It becomes an addiction. Imagine this, folks. There's a movie theater in your mind that only plays one film on repeat. You already know every scene, every line, every twist. It's the story where they grow up, apologize, become consistent, show up fully, and finally give you the love you needed from the beginning. You sit down day after day, watching it again in your imagination, and each time your heart gets pulled into a world that never existed outside your head. That's the addiction. You know this movie isn't real, but it feels better than sitting in the silence of your current reality. You catch yourself thinking, we were so close. If they had just tried a little more, we would have made it. Or, if I had just done this differently, maybe we'd still be together. Or, if they come back in a few months, maybe we can finally be who we were meant to be. Those thoughts are not harmless. They keep you chained to a future that's not happening. They steal your energy from the life that's right in front of you. Here's a hard truth. You're not just mourning what happened. You're mourning what never happened. But you wanted it so badly. Your mind treats it like a real loss. You attached to a possibility and called it destiny. Why do you think like this? Because your brain loves unfinished stories. When something doesn't end clearly, when there's no proper apology, no honest talk, no real closure, your mind steps in and says, fine, I'll write the ending myself. And the ending it writes is almost always softer, kinder, more beautiful than what really would have happened. Suddenly, instead of remembering how they dismissed your feelings, You imagine a version of them who comes back wiser, healed, emotionally mature. Instead of accepting that they weren't ready to love at your level, you imagine a timeline where they magically are. But my friends, Stoic psychology teaches us to separate what we wish from what is. You cannot build your life on maybe. Maybe is how you lose years waiting for a door that was never yours to walk through. Let's break a lie right now. We were meant to be is sometimes just another way of saying, I'm not ready to accept that this ended. The idea that you were meant for each other keeps the fantasy alive. It keeps you hooked on what could have been. It makes you believe the universe is working on some secret plan in the background to bring you back together. And while you're busy believing that, life is trying to move you on to things that are actually meant for you, things that don't require you to suffer first just to deserve them. Think of it like this. Imagine you're holding a key and staring at a door that won't open. You jiggle the handle, you push, you knock, you wait. You tell yourself, this is my door, it has to be. I've invested too much to walk away now. You stand there so long that you don't even notice the other doors appearing around you, doors that actually fit your key, but you don't try them because you're emotionally loyal to the door that kept you outside. That's what could have been does. It keeps you standing in front of something that already told you no in 100 different ways, not always with words, but with behavior, with inconsistency, with silence, with half effort, with almost, and someday, and I'm just not ready, but don't leave. You're afraid to release that imagined future because it feels like giving up. It feels like saying, all that I hoped for was a lie. But here's the truth, your hope wasn't the lie. Their readiness was. You loved with real intention. You saw potential. You believed in growth. You meant every word when you pictured a future. That was your truth. But some people never step into the version you saw in them, not because you didn't love them enough, but because they weren't willing to become that person. You can't force someone into their own potential. You can only invite them. And they chose not to walk through it. So what hurts now is not just that they left, it's that your mind is still living in the version where they stayed and became the person you always needed. That version is beautiful, I know, but it isn't real. And holding on to what isn't real is the fastest way to disconnect from your own life. Here's a quote for you. The future you invented with them is not the only future you're allowed to have. Read that again. Let it sink in. Because right now, your entire emotional world might be built around one path that is closed, while life is quietly trying to hand you new paths that won't require you to break yourself just to be chosen. Will it be difficult to let go of what could have been? Absolutely. It will feel like losing a universe you built brick by brick inside your chest. It will feel empty at first, like someone cleared out your mental furniture and left you alone in a quiet room. But that empty room is not punishment, it's a possibility. You're not losing a destiny. You're letting go of a script that kept you trapped. You're freeing yourself from waiting, from rehearsing, from mentally editing a love story that already ended. Your job now is not to keep rewriting what didn't happen. It's to start imagining what can happen, for you, not just with them. A life where your peace is not constantly on trial. A love that doesn't require chaos first. A future that doesn't depend on someone finally becoming who they promised they'd be. Your affirmation for this part of the journey is, I release the fantasy. Write it in the comments to show them. Show yourself, and show the world around you that you're ready to walk away from what never truly existed. And stay with me, because next, we're going to expose how pain itself can become a routine you keep choosing without even knowing it. Number 5. When pain becomes a routine. Sometimes it's not the person you're holding on to anymore. It's the feeling you've gotten used to living in. My friends, this one is heavy because it forces you to admit something you probably don't want to see in yourself. After a breakup, there comes a point where the wound is real, the hurt is real, the confusion is real. But over time, something else begins to grow quietly underneath it all. The pain stops being just a reaction and slowly becomes a routine. You don't just feel hurt, you start living in hurt like it's your default setting. You wake up and check your phone, even though you know there's nothing from them. You open old chats and scroll through conversations you've already read 100 times. You visit their profile just to see what they're doing. You replay arguments in your mind. You imagine replies you'll never send. You picture scenarios where they come back, where you finally say the perfect thing, where you finally feel understood. These aren't random actions, they're rituals, emotional habits. It's like your heart has turned pain into a daily practice. Imagine this, folks. Think of a person sitting in a room with the same sad song playing on repeat. At first, the song makes them cry because the lyrics cut deep, but after a while, they don't even really listen to the lyrics anymore. They're just used to the sound being there. When someone comes in and turns off the music, they don't feel relief. They feel strange, exposed, uncomfortable. It's too quiet. That's what happens when you try to step away from your own pain routine. The silence feels unfamiliar, even scary, because you've built your days around emotional noise. You might ask yourself, if this hurts so much, why do I keep doing it? Why do I keep checking, rereading, and revisiting? The answer is simple but brutal. Your mind would rather experience familiar pain than unfamiliar peace. Pain may be exhausting, but it's predictable. You know exactly how it feels to miss them, to wonder, to ache. But peace, moving on. That means stepping into a version of yourself you haven't met yet. And that unknown part of you, the healed part, feels distant and strange. So you stay where you are, not because it's good, but because it's known. Let me break a lie here. You're not being loyal by staying hurt. You're not honoring the love by remaining broken. You're not proving it mattered by refusing to let yourself breathe. Pain doesn't prove depth. It proves attachment. And when pain becomes a routine, it stops being honest and starts being a cage. Your nervous system gets conditioned too. After weeks or months of emotional roller coasters, constant overthinking, late-night spirals, your body gets used to being in survival mode. Calm feels suspicious. Peace feels temporary. Happiness feels like something that might be taken away at any moment. So part of you clings to the sadness because at least it doesn't surprise you. You expect it. You know how to function inside it. That's why it feels so difficult to stop checking their updates, to stop opening old photos, to stop replaying that last conversation in your mind. It's not just that you miss them, it's that you've built an inner life where their absence is the center of everything. The story of "they left, I'm hurt" becomes your inner identity. Without that story, you'd have to ask, who am I now? What does my life look like if I stop making this breakup the main character? That question is terrifying. And yet, my friend, that's exactly the question that will set you free. There's another lie we have to break. The idea that if you're still in pain, it means the love was real or strong. But think about it. There are people who have walked through divorce, betrayal, death, unimaginable loss, yet they eventually find a way to smile again. Their love was real too. Their pain was real. What changed wasn't the past. What changed was their refusal to live inside the same emotional loop forever. They kept the lessons. They kept the memories. But they refused to keep the suffering as their daily home. Pain is supposed to be a signal, not a lifestyle. It's meant to say, something happened here. Something needs to be understood, healed, processed. But many of us never move past that first stage. We feel the pain, we sit in it, and instead of asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" we start asking, "How do I make them see what they did to me?" And boom, now your healing is no longer about you, it's about them again. Stoic psychology teaches something powerful. You don't control what others do, but you fully control how long you keep feeding a story that hurts you. When you keep revisiting old texts, you are choosing to feed it. When you keep stalking their page, you are choosing to feed it. When you keep rehearsing revenge or fantasy apologies in your mind, you are choosing to feed it. This doesn't mean your sadness is your fault. It means your ongoing participation in the suffering can be questioned. You might think, but if I stop doing these things, doesn't that mean it never mattered? No, that's the fear of talking. It mattered. They mattered. You mattered. The love mattered. The hurt mattered. But healing doesn't erase importance. Healing simply says, I refuse to relive this wound every day when there's a whole life waiting for me outside of it. Imagine for a second that the pain you've been carrying is a heavy coat. When the heartbreak was fresh, that coat protected you. It kept you wrapped in emotional warmth when everything felt cold and empty. But now, the season has changed, and you're still wearing the same coat in the middle of summer. It's not protecting you anymore. It's suffocating you. The routine of pain is that coat. You needed it once. You don't need it forever. The turning point comes the day you realize you're tired, not just of them, not just of the breakup, tired of hearing the same story in your own head, tired of spending your precious energy on someone who probably isn't thinking about you at the same intensity, tired of giving your daily peace away for free. That tiredness is not weakness, it's wisdom. And from that wisdom, a new choice emerges. I can feel the pain when it rises, but I don't have to feed it. I don't have to visit their page. I don't have to open old conversations. I don't have to wear this as my identity anymore. I can acknowledge what happened without living there. Your affirmation for this part of the journey is, I break the pattern. Write it in the comments to show them, show yourself, and show the world around you that you're done treating pain like a routine. And stay with me, because next we're going to talk about why your mind knows it's over, but your heart still feels like it's years behind, trying to catch up. Number 8. Rebirth. The moment you realize you weren't stuck, you were growing. One day you'll look back and realize you weren't stuck in the past. You were being rebuilt for a future your old self couldn't handle. My friends, there comes a quiet moment after all the crying, all the overthinking, all the late-night spirals, where something inside you shifts, not with fireworks, not with a dramatic speech, but with a simple realization. You're tired of living like your whole life ended with them. You're tired of letting one chapter narrate your entire book. At first, healing doesn't look like strength. It looks like getting out of bed when you don't want to. It looks like not checking their profile today. It looks like going a few hours without replaying old conversations. It looks like laughing at something and then catching yourself thinking, wait, I just felt okay for a second. That's rebirth. It doesn't kick the door down. It walks in softly, like light slowly filling a dark room. Hey folks, imagine a tree in winter. From the outside, it looks lifeless. No leaves, no color, just branches and cold. But under the surface, something is happening. Roots are still growing. The structure is still being strengthened. The tree isn't dead. It's preparing. That's you after your breakup. On the surface, it might look like not much is changing. Same city, same room, same routine. But inside, you're not the same person who begged to be chosen. You're not the same person whose mood depended on their message. You're slowly becoming someone steadier, clearer, stronger. You start to see it in small ways. You don't rush to respond when someone tries to play with your emotions. You don't mistake inconsistency for mystery anymore. You don't chase people who act unsure about you. You'd rather be alone than half-loved. That is growth. That is your new standard quietly taking shape. And here's the truth most people never tell you. The goal was never to make them regret losing you. The real victory is when you look back and say, I can't believe I ever allowed that version of love into my life. Not from hatred, but from clarity. You outgrow the hurt. You outgrow the fantasy. You outgrow the old you who settled for less than their soul needed. Your affirmation now is simple. I rise renewed. Write it in the comments to show yourself, show them, and show the world around you that this is your rebirth season. And if this message spoke to your heart, my friends, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Stay with me, because this is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of the strongest chapter yet.